Hello everyone, welcome and thank you very much for joining us today. I'm Louisa. I'm one of the product market managers at Elsevier, and I'm joined today by my colleagues Severine and Devin, who are here to help answer your questions. Just to be aware, my internet is a bit slow today, so please bear with me as we go through in case my voice sounds a bit robotic or pages take a bit longer to load. This session, as you've just heard, is being recorded, so you will receive an email from me following the session with a link allowing you to re-listen. We are focusing on medicine today, but what we will be presenting will still be relevant to other health professions, so please do feel free to share this webinar with your colleagues. If you have any specific questions as I go along, can you please type them in the Q&A box? My colleagues and I will endeavour to answer your questions during the session, and I'm also happy to answer your questions at the end. So let's have a look at today's session objectives. So we've put this webinar together today as we wanted to present some ideas we think could be helpful when you are looking to teach, engage and support your students remotely. By the end of this webinar, you will understand a few ways you can use ClinicalKey Student to support remote learning and teaching. We will look at how to prepare a lecture presentation by adding content to new or existing lectures, how to share content with your students, how to test your students' understanding of a topic in a formative manner using the platform, and lastly, how to use ClinicalKey Student with a collaborative platform such as the ones listed here to engage your students and also notify them of work that needs to be done. So let's first have a look at how we can add some content to new or existing lectures using ClinicalKey Student as part of a lecture preparation. So this is my lecture on the anatomy of the thorax, and I'm Louisa, I'm an anatomy teacher. I have a lecture coming up that I normally deliver to my students in person. Obviously, I can't do that anymore, but my university has decided to use ClinicalKey Student along with other collaborative platforms such as Microsoft Teams and Zoom to help support my online teaching. So this is the ClinicalKey Student platform. The view I have today includes the assessment capabilities, and your view may vary depending on what your university has subscribed to. So as you've seen, I've already written my lecture on the anatomy of the thorax, but I want to include some more links and images to help the students when they use this to study from. So I'm going to start off by adding an image to my lecture. In this case, I already know the book I want the image to come from. I'm using Gray's Anatomy for Students as my core text. So to get to this book, I'm actually going to click on Browse Resources up at the top. And this gets me to a list of all the titles available on ClinicalKey Student. I now want to filter this list, so I'm just seeing bits about Gray's. So Gray's in the filter. And there you go. It pulls up a list of our Gray's series titles that we have in this platform. The one I want is the second one down, so Gray's Anatomy for Students. I can click on this and this opens the table of contents, as you can see. As my lecture is on the thorax, I want to have a look at chapter 3 for my image. So I'm just going to click there. And as you can see, this pulls up the full chapter online. So I'm looking for an image, in this case, on the mediastinum so that I can use this in my lecture. On the left-hand side of the screen, I can see the sections within this chapter, and I can jump straight there. So here's one on the mediastinum. I'm going to click on that. And now I want to see if I can find a suitable image to add to my presentation. Don't like the first one or the second one, it's not too bad. Yeah, this one will do. So I like this image. I'm going to click on it to open it up, and then I'm going to select Add to Presentation. So the presentation that I've got here is my image collection for this lecture. And as you can see, I've already created it, but it's easy enough to do if you hit Create Presentation there. In this case, I'm going to click on Add and View Presentation to take me directly to it. Okay, so I've got my one image I want to add. And as you can see, this is a PowerPoint slide, so it's got the image in it, and it's also got a very important citation. So all the content in this platform is fully copyright cleared for use in your teaching and exams. So I need to download this to actually make use of it. So I'm going to hit the download button and hit OK. And as you can see, it's downloaded itself down at the bottom here. So I'm going to click to open this up. It'll just take a minute as PowerPoint loads. There we go. And I'll pull this over so you can actually see it. So there you go. That's that image that I've downloaded right there. Now from here, pull up my lecture slides next to it. I could actually just take this lecture slide and put it directly into my presentation, and that's fine. But in this case, I know that my university wants me to use a particularly themed PowerPoint. So it's got that little logo down at the bottom. In this case, obviously it's Elsevier, but we've had this happen with other universities. So what we want to do is copy the image from here along with the citation and put it into our lecture slide. So I'm going to select this image, right click and hit copy. Click back on my lecture slide, right click and hit the paste picture option. I can then move this around and resize it as I like. Now for the important bit is to copy over that copyright information. So I'm going to select the text box that has the copyright information, right click and hit copy again. Go back to my lecture slide, left, copy, there we go. Get to a blank section and then hit paste, there we are. And resize this box. Okay, so it's made a small, it's made it quite small, but that's fine because I don't want that to be the focus of my picture, but I do need to have the copyright information on my slide in order for it to be legal, really. So I'm quite happy with that. So the next thing I want to do to finish off my lecture is I need the students to do some post-lecture reading. I'm going to close out of my image collection here. And we'll go back to the ClinicalKey Student platform. So if we remember, we were in the Gray's Anatomy chapter 3. So I'm just going to hit back, and that will get us straight back to that book chapter that we were working out of. And actually, it takes us straight back to the section we were looking at as well. So I'm going to want them to read the entire section, although I could give them the stable link for just the mediastinum. I don't want to do that. I want them to read the whole thing. So I'm going to click the up arrow, and then I'm going to click on this stable link button up at the top. And as you can see, it says copied link. So what this has done is it's copied the stable link to my clipboard. So I can paste this into my slides or into any of the collaborative platforms. So in this case, I'm going to actually put this into my slides. So I click back on my lecture, and I right click and hit paste. There we go, and hit enter. So when my students go through these slides, when they're reviewing them, they can click on that link and it will take them directly to the book chapter in ClinicalKey Student. Okay, I'm happy with this lecture now, so I'm going to hit save and close my lecture. So to finish off my lecture prep, I want to make a few notes in the text. So back in this ClinicalKey Student platform, I'm actually going to click Launch Bookshelf here. And it takes me, I've preloaded this because my internet has been slow today. It takes me directly to the section that I was actually working on. In this case, it's the mediastinum, which is where we were before. And I can see on here, if I wanted to go to other sections, I could click on Table of Contents, which will give me a full list of the table of contents. So I could jump to different areas in the book. I could search for something within the book. I have my notebook here, which is where all my notes are. This is a list of figures, and this is flashcards, which is more of a student feature, because we know students like to test themselves and create flashcards. So the first thing I'm actually going to do is change the color of the highlighters, because I really don't like red. So I'm going to click on the settings icon here, And this is where you can manage the types of highlighters that you have. And it also shows you your sharing features, which we can discuss later. So if I click on the Manage Highlighter section, I've got two at the moment. One is this rad red, and the other is teaching points. I want to change the rad red. So let's change that to a slightly more soothing green, because that's one of my favorite colors. And I'm actually going to change the name of this to Share. So as you can see, I've also got this public icon clicked. What this means is that anything I do with this highlighter will then be shared with my students, which is what that sharing link and sharing features was all about. So I'm happy with this change, and I'm going to hit save. So I've got my two highlighters, and as you can see, it's already reflected the change here. So I've got those. Right, I'm going to close this. So if I wanted to, I could add new highlighters, but I don't. Okay, so let's go and click on some notes. So if I click on any of the notes, it takes me directly to the notes in my notebook. And what I'd like to do is actually make some notes for myself. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit. I've had a note here already, but let's make a note here. So I want to click on this, pull up this section, and then I'm going to select Fast Highlight, and then select the Teaching Points highlighter, the one without the shared icon in it. Click on that. As you can see, it turns fast highlighting on. So that just lets me know that anything I select now will be highlighted in that color. So I can close that because I've been aware of it. And I'm going to select this as something I need to remember. And then I can click on this to create a note for myself. So in this case, I will say remember to there we go. Clicking off of this will save the note. And if I wanted to, I could scroll down in here, and that's the teaching points reflected in my notebook there. Okay. So I'm happy with the notes that I've made. So I'm going to go back to my main platform by clicking on ClinicalKey Student. And what I want to do now is create a post-lecture quiz for my students. Lucky them. So I'm on the main page of ClinicalKey Student, and I'm now going to click on Build an Assessment. And this will open the Build an Assessment section. So I want to name my assessment. In this case, I'm going to call it Thorax. 2. And now I can start adding questions to my assessment. So I'm going to click Add Questions. Okay, and we have a few question banks that we can choose from. In this case, I'm quite happy with the basic science because my students are in first year. So I want to stick with this question bank. I can also choose to filter by topic. So we've got systems as an option or disciplines. In this case, I want to choose disciplines because I teach anatomy. I don't want to see anything else. So I've selected anatomy. And then I can further choose to filter these search results. So I can either do this by a single word, which I can put in the search box, or if I have a specific phrase in mind, I can use double quotes to ensure that it filters for this phrase. So in this case, I'm going to put in double quotes. There we go. As you can see, it filters all of the questions that relate to heart valves. So now I actually want to have a look at the questions to see how good they are and whether or not they fit with what I've been teaching. So I like the look of this first question. So let's have a look at it in more detail. To do that, I just hit View Question Details. And what we see is a list of the correct of the answers that the students will see, distractors, and also the correct answer. And each of these also have inline remediation that the students will see as they go through the quiz. It's got that for both the incorrect answers and the correct answers. I like this question, so I'm going to click Add to add it to my quiz. I can then go through and continue to view the question details if I wish, or I can quickly add questions to my quiz by just clicking the Add button. Up at the top, you can see added questions with a 5 in parentheses next to it. So this is the number of questions that I've already added to my quiz. If I click on that, I can see all the questions that are in my quiz, and if I wanted to, I could remove some or go back to all questions and add some. In this case, I'm quite happy with what I've created, so I'm going to hit Done, and this takes me back to Build an Assessment section. So now I get to choose who actually gets to see this. At the moment, it's set to all students in this course. But if I wanted to, I could edit the students. I could say specific students. In this case, I only have 9 students in my course, but you could filter and select a subsection of these students, like so, if you wish to only assign it to them. So say you have got a tutorial group that you want to give a specific quiz to, you can do it this way. Okay. And then we can also choose what date it's available from. So I don't want it available today because I haven't given my lecture yet. I'm going to set that it's going to appear tomorrow after I've finished my lecture, which is fine. And I'm going to give them a week to do the quiz by. So there we go. I'm happy with the settings now, so I'm just going to hit Assign. As you can see, a pop-up box comes up that says that the assignment has been assigned, which is great. So all of my students will automatically see in the platform that they have an assignment due. I can then view all of my assignments. And there we go. That's the Thorax Quiz 2 that I've just created there. Now, I did create another lecture, or another quiz for my students, which was the Thorax Quiz 1. This was a pre-lecture quiz I wanted them to complete. So let's have a look at the results of that, because I can see some students have taken it. So if I click on the name of that, there we go. I can see that 8 students out of the 9 have completed it. We have an average time and the percentage scored, so 45%, not so good, but it is a pre-lecture quiz, so I wasn't expecting miracles. And I can also see that Amy Potter here has not started it. If I wanted to, I could also export these scores and put them into my learning management system, and this will allow me to keep track of student engagement with the course and also use it as evidence if needed with engagement for later on. I can also, if I scroll down, view performance by key concept. So in this case, I can see that I should focus on heart sounds. So that's an area that they perform particularly poorly in. So I think what I'll do is I'll pass that on to their clinical skills lecturer, but I'll also make sure that in my upcoming lecture that we have a look at the heart valves in more detail and make sure they understand how those correspond to the various heart sounds. Cool. If I wanted to, I could also search for content, and this will take me to the main section and search results of ClinicalKey Student, and I can see some books that I could direct them to using those same stable links that we did in the beginning. So Heart Sounds and Murmurs, for example, will take us directly to the section in Medical Sciences, like so. And if I wanted to, then I could copy the stable link for that, which is just on the side. Okay. So now that I've finished my lecture preparation, I want to use my collaborative platform to notify my students that they've got some more work to do. So I'm going to minimize this, and I'm going to show you the Microsoft Teams site that we have. In this case, we're using Microsoft Teams, but this could be any collaborative platform that you've got. So we don't have to specifically go with this one because the links will work across anything, okay? So in this case, I've got a to-do task for everyone to do, which is load Gray's student into their bookshelf, so they've got access to it. And that's just a straight link through to ClinicalKey Student. I've also got some pre-lecture work. So this is a section on the thorax I wanted them to read within Gray's Anatomy for Students. And this is a notification that they've got a pre-lecture quiz. I can also keep track of who's actually done the work, so I can see that a few people have this in progress. That's okay. I haven't given my lecture yet, so I'm not expecting this to be fully done. And then I've also got my post-lecture work here. This is very easy to modify, and you just pop that in the notes section for this. Okay. And again, it should be very similar for any other collaborative platform that you have. Okay. So I'm going to minimize that, and we'll go back to our presentation here. So just to review what we've looked through today, we've covered how to use ClinicalKey Student to prepare a lecture, share content, and test students. We've also had a look at how ClinicalKey Student can actually be integrated with collaborative platforms. As I said, in this case, we use Microsoft Teams, but this could be any platform that your university has subscribed to. And these are, listed on this side, so it will integrate with those. So that's all I've actually got to present. I know it's gone quite quickly. Thank you again for joining us.